So we're working on a car here today. I've got a bad NOx sensor, bank 2. This is a Toyota Camry V6 3.0, and the NOx sensor is below the manifold on this car, so it's going to be a pretty big job, especially for someone like myself who's not a certified or professional mechanic. So I'm going to give it the best try today. Hopefully we can get this done as soon as possible. The car is needed by someone else. That being said, video is really not going to be a how-to for your own vehicle. You can watch me do what I do, make the mistakes that I make, but hopefully we'll get this done and maybe you'll see something that'll be helpful. First thing I'm going to do is to remove negative cable from the battery. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this little beauty cover here. Okay, these were 5mm hex. Seems to be a couple of clips back here. Try to pry this off without the bolts flying off. There we go. Okay, so there's two 10mm bolts that hold this housing breather box on. One I've already taken off. One right there. So I'm going to grab my wrench and get that off. There's a lot of hoses that need to be pulled off and marked so you'll know how to put it back on. There's 3 on the side here. One right here. You need to disconnect this mass airflow sensor, which I have. There's a clip right here. Disconnect that. I'm gonna have to hit my flash on. There's at least one hose that needs to come off down here. I'll try to get a better look at that. Let's see. Oh, that light's in my face here. You're gonna have to take this hose off right here. It's practical. Pliers, and I'm going to turn that off, and using a screwdriver or a 10mm wrench, unscrew that, be able to get this boot off here and just pull this top off at that point. Okay, let's see it. Feels like there's something else connected here. Okay, I'm going to take the air filter out with it. Alright, next, this piece here. I'm going to try to remove this from the throttle body. All one piece here. I've got to remove this hose here. So I removed it there. Alright, it's probably going to be something. Okay, so that's it for that. Alright, to take this plenum off here, I'm going to try to leave this throttle body on here and just disconnect everything from it and just take it all off, or take it off with the plenum. So I'm going to have to disconnect this here. I'm going to have to disconnect the plug here. Hose right here will have to come off. Disconnect this plug here. Pull this hose off here. These hoses don't have to come off, but for now let's go ahead and try to get that off. Okay, to take this throttle body off, the plugs we took off, this one here, I had to use a screwdriver and just pry it in there, pull this one off, took this one off. This was like a push button here. There is a fuel hose that we took off right here. Battery being disconnected, we shouldn't have to worry about the fuel pump. That should stop pretty soon here. It hasn't really leaked that much. Also, back on the back here, we took off this hose here, or this plug here, disconnected that. Pulled this vacuum hose off. I went ahead and pulled it off right here. Could have pulled it off back here. It was a little harder to get to there. Pulled this hose here off from right here. Put that over there. So I think everything's freed up here from the throttle body here. Take another look in a little bit. So to get the plenum off here, we have to remove this rail here. It's held on by two 10mm nuts, one here and one right here. So we pulled those off. Went ahead and unplugged these connectors. This one goes down here. I don't know if we really had to do that, but went ahead and did that anyway. What we really did need to do was pull the connector from right here out. There's a hose right here. Pulled that away. Pulled this hose off of the throttle body. So if we lift up on the rail now that those nuts are out of the way, should be able to just lay this over here. We may unplug some more. Let's see. That hose needs to be, yeah, it's connected right here, so it needs to be unplugged. And pretty much clear, so we can start taking that plenum off now. Two intake plenum braces, firewall, side of the rear cylinder head. Okay, so I'm going to show you those in a second. I'm going to kind of tell you how we got the hardest one off. Yeah, so one of the braces, right here, and that is a 12mm, and I would advise using a 6-point socket. That was not that difficult. The difficult one was on this side here. So you don't have a lot of room in there for a big wrench at all. We used a 14mm 6-point socket, and you can't even see the bolt. I don't know if I can show you the bracket. Bracket's right here. I'm touching the bolt. That bracket is C-shaped, so the bolt is recessed inside, so you can't put a wrench on the bolt. We used a socket, small handle wrench. This is a 14 or a 1/4 inch wrench and socket, 6-point. And so it was still hard to get to because you know, we don't have a lot of room. Let's see if I can put it on the bolt to show you. Yeah, that's the kind of room with the wrench on there. And I've moved all this wiring out of the way. It was clipped right here. Kind of move this out of the way. It was clipped right here. So that's the kind of space you're going to have. What I did do was I found this old pipe, slid it over the wrench, put it in the vise and just with a rubber mallet, I was in the vise, just beat it so that I could get a little better of a grip on it. And still really hard to do, but once it did pop. So I don't know how many foot-pounds it is on there. It was pretty snug. Okay, so we're taking off these two nuts here. It was on there really tight. I think I saw that it was like 31 foot-pounds. So I'm going to use a torque wrench here to try to break this other one here. And this torque wrench is in inches, so I'm going to try to. So that'd be what, 384? Is that what you? So we're looking at around the 384 range here. Okay. All right, so I don't know what that was. We'll have to check back in the camera and look. Okay, trying to pull the plenum off. I've got the bolts off the plenum, but there's another, it's like some kind of ground right there. Just took that nut off, pull that off. Okay, there'll probably be some more maybe hoses that need to come off as we take this off. We'll just have to lift it up over the bolts here, both of these, see what else we've got. All right, so right underneath this diaphragm here, there's another hose. And you can pull that hose off, or you can just pull the whole plug that is connected to this black plug with the hose running underneath the plenum. So that's one other thing we have to take off, and I'm sure there's going to be some more before we get this plenum off, so we'll get right back. All right, so we've got the plenum almost off. We had to unbolt this intake from the throttle body, and we had to pull it off of the bolts there. There's a gasket there. I'll probably have to replace that. But once we got it pulled away, we were able to lift the plenum off the bolts. Okay, so what it's really hanging on by is one ground wire. We unplugged this plug before. You can also unplug it from underneath the plenum. But the only thing that's holding it now is that ground, so we have to go in here, find out what bolt that is, and just take that off, and we should be good to go as far as pulling the plenum off. All right, so here's that ground wire right here. The nut is held on. By the plenum, and it's kind of a bear to get off here. What was this, 10 millimeter? Actually, it's not a nut, it's a bolt that has to come out. Don't want to drop that. Alright, I'm going to mark that definitely. Alright, after removing that ground wire, taking the bolt out of the plenum, before we even did that, we took some rags and put them down here in the intake ports here. Then we got that bolt out. Just want to make sure no dirt or broken plastic or anything goes in there. So now we're going to go ahead and take plenum off. So go ahead and lift it, and I'm going to kind of hold this here. All right, just hold it steady. Be careful, hold on. All right, I think you're free. Okay. Bracket, brace. Here's the one that we just pulled off of the ground. Okay, the next thing we need to do is probably gonna put some electrical tape around this. So before taking the manifold off, I'm gonna take these fuel rails, just try to push them over on the side over there. You could leave them on. From what I can tell, you just have to disconnect the fuel line from right here. And I don't really want to mess with that. There should just, be a little bit of fuel leaking out if you do. But I kind of went the hard route here, I guess, and it wasn't that hard actually. There's only 4 10mm bolts holding these rails on here. And before you do that, just unplug from the injectors here. Being a 6-cylinder, there was 6. So I've done that already. Got the bolts out. I guess the most difficult thing is when you pull these rails up, there is your injectors come out like that, and there's plastic spacers here, so those are going to fall out. Definitely want to have your rag or paper towel or something in your imports here, in your ports here, intake ports. But yeah, watch for those and put those back. That's what I'm kind of using this video for here. Okay, so here's an update. Took the fuel rail injector plugs out, moved them to the side, secured them pretty good here. Line is still connected. Plugged up those holes, fuel injector holes there. Got a lot of debris here. I want to clean this stuff off. I'll probably get a shop vac or something, clean that out. Okay, there's 11 bolts holding the manifold on here. I took 2 of them off. There's 2 nuts, one right here and one right there. Easy to get off. I think these are put on with about I think 11 foot-pounds, so don't really need to tighten them when we put it back in place that tight. There's, they've got the little star. The rest of them have the little star bolt, but you can also, I'm using a 12mm. I used a 12mm on those 2 washers, and the rest of these 9 are going to be 12mm. Let's see. I also removed those little black spacers. Put those aside. I've been marking everything. Hopefully it'll pay off when we start putting this back together. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Oh yeah. Before I can take the manifold off, I'm going to need to remove these 2 heater hoses here. So I'll just move the clamps back and hopefully they'll come off pretty easy. And I'm thinking that I've already got this, whatever this is, I've already got that disconnected there. So I'm thinking that should come off after we get the rest of the 9 bolts off, get these 2 hoses off here, and clean up around here. I decided to go ahead and drain the antifreeze out of the car. There's a drain plug right there. Mine was broken, but I think I may be able to use it. I'm gonna try to loosen it just a second. If you can't get it off, then I'm gonna use the lower radiator hose, which is right there, to access it from underneath. So let me see if this is gonna drain here. Felt like it was loose. Put some pliers on it, and I'm going to take the cap off in a second. There we go. All right. Okay, so I've got the 9 bolts out, free and clear. I think I just may leave them in, so I think I'll be able to get them off. Probably should take them out. Only thing I've got here is this top hose. This hose here, I think I can leave on. I'm gonna find out here in just a second. So a couple of these bolts I think are smaller. That's kind of why I just want to leave them in. Got this hose here. Alright, so we were about to call it a day, but we decided to go ahead and end the video with at least letting you see where the knock sensors are at. Here's the harness here. And this rubber hose needs to come off. I don't know if we will replace it or not. We're going to wait and get the hose off tomorrow. But as far as where the sensors are, one's right here. There is a connector that needs to come off here. I need to pull that off. And then there's one right under the hose. So that's the 2. Here's the harness. They're connected by the wiring harness here. This harness gets really hot. Doesn't seem to be in terrible shape as far as cracking here. But we're going to replace that as well. So we're going to replace both of the sensors. The harness may replace the hose here. But let me show you where the clip is, or where the connector for the harness is, and that is right here. I just unplugged it. So we'll be taking this off the harness, figure out tomorrow how to get that off. So here's a look at how I took the knock sensors off. I took one end of the hose off here, and after that I could raise the hose up. I've almost got this other end off, but I raised the end up here. I could get to the connectors. Knock sensors connector was inside there. Let me just take it off. So with the hose raised up, I reached in, unplugged this sensor here, then this one, and I'm not exactly sure which bank. I think that's bank 2 there, but I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, remove both the connectors, push the harness out of the way. Hose was at that point I was able to get my hand in there and just twist the other end It was really on there. Both of these ends were on there really tight. As you can see, the clamp is embedded in the hose, and pulled it off. At that point, I could get to the knock sensors, and I used a 1 1/16 inch wrench. Show you that. Here's the 1 1/16 inch wrench that I used. It was pretty snug on there. I don't know how many pounds, foot pounds, but put it on there, and I went around on the other side and just pushed the end of the wrench and broke this one loose. This one was about the same way here, but they are both off now, or almost off. I'm going to show you what they look like here. I would advise, if you can, try to buy these on line. So anyway, I'm gonna go out and try to get the parts for this, and continue after I get the parts that I need.